The sky cracked open with fire as the ship fell from orbit, trailing smoke and sparks like a dying comet. Commander Ryland Creed squinted through the canopy of thick alien trees, his hand already on his pulse rifle. Miranus 3 was supposed to be a dead zone, just a research outpost for studying moss and insects. But now, something was crashing fast, and the emergency beacon wasn't human. His comm buzzed with a high-pitched frequency, then a broken voice in an unfamiliar language echoed through his helmet. It was soft, scared, and tiny. Without waiting for orders, Raylan sprinted into the jungle, following the trail of scorched earth and broken branches. The further he went, the more he noticed strange, glowing trails of blue fluid, like blood, smeared against tree trunks and rocks. Something was injured. Something small. He reached the crash site just as the flames started to die. The wrecked ship was no bigger than a hover truck, its curved hull shimmering with crystal plating. Around it, scattered among the foliage, were creatures no taller than his boot-delicate, winged beings with pale skin and shimmering eyes. Some were crawling toward shelter. Others weren't moving at all. Ryland's breath caught in his throat. These weren't just animals. They were people. A movement to his left made him spin, rifle raised. Shadows moved between the trees tall, armored figures with jagged gear and rusted weapons. Raiders. Not the local kind either. These ones were hunting, and their target wasn't him. The first shot came fast. Ryland rolled behind a fallen tree, returning fire with calm precision. His training kicked in. Every shot counted. His HUD mapped their positions. They weren't expecting a human with military tech. Within minutes, 3 raiders were down. The rest fled into the trees. Ryland stood slowly, scanning for survivors. The tiny aliens huddled near a broken rock, eyes wide. One of them stepped forward, a female, it seemed, with long silvery hair and wings folded tight. Her voice was soft, trembling, but clear. "You saved us." Ryland lowered his weapon. "I wasn't going to let them hurt you." The tiny alien looked up at him, her eyes full of tears and wonder. She turned and spoke to the others in her language, and they began to sing not a song of joy, but a mourning chant. They had lost many. He could see it now. The small bodies being gently lifted by their kind, carried with honor toward the forest. One of the aliens, older and with broken wings, floated forward using a staff of twisted vine and crystal. He pointed to Ryland, then to the jungle path. "Come, Chief will see." "Must see." Ryland hesitated. He had no backup. His outpost was hours away. But his gut told him these people weren't a threat. And if those raiders came back, they'd be wiped out without him. He nodded slowly. "All right. Take me to your chief." They moved quickly through the forest, through passages barely wide enough for Ryland to crawl through. The air grew thicker, warmer, filled with the scent of sap and glowing spores. Suddenly, the narrow tunnel opened into a vast underground cavern, alive with soft lights and floating platforms. The city of Venolari lay before him, a hidden world of wonder carved into stone and root. Ryland stared in awe. Tiny homes woven from leaf and crystal, water that flowed in streams through the air, and music that hummed through the walls like a heartbeat. It was like stepping into a dream. Dozens of the tiny beings gathered, whispering, staring at the tall human in their midst. Children peeked from behind vines, some offering small glowing stones and thanks. Ryland smiled gently and waved, unsure what else to do. Then a path opened through the crowd, and the chief approached. He was taller than the others, with 4 wings instead of 2, and skin that shimmered gold. His eyes were sharp but kind. He studied Ryland for a long moment before speaking. "You are the Guardian?" Ryland blinked. "Guardian? I just Helped. The chief nodded slowly. Then you are guardian. By deed. By spirit. He raised his hands, and the crowd hummed in approval. The chief looked toward one of the nearby chambers and said something in his native tongue. Figure stepped into the light. She was small, barely taller than the others, but radiant. Long white hair drifted like silk. Her wings were soft lavender. She looked nervous, her fingers tangled in front of her. The chief placed a gentle hand on her shoulder and said in a firm voice, "You will honor the guardian. As law commands, you are the bond." The girl's eyes widened. Ryland's jaw dropped. Wait, what? The crowd began to hum a low song, rising in harmony as petals drifted from the ceiling above. The girl looked up at Ryland, scared and confused, and whispered, Do you accept me?" Ryland didn't move. He didn't speak. His heart raced. He had no idea what was happening, but every instinct told him that nothing in his life would ever be the same again. Ryland stood frozen, the words hanging in the air like fog. Do you accept me? The music, the glowing petals, the stares of hundreds of tiny eyes, it all pressed in on him like a dream he didn't understand. The girl before him looked fragile, beautiful, and terrified. She wasn't just asking a question. She was offering herself, because of some alien tradition he knew nothing about. He opened his mouth to respond, but nothing came out. The chief stepped forward and placed his hand on Ryland's chest, right over his heart. You saved us. You fought with no promise of reward. The bond is sacred. It is a gift. Our ancient law binds us to offer our most precious one to the guardian. The crowd murmured softly. Ciala, he would later learn her name, stood quietly, her lavender wings trembling slightly, her glowing eyes cast down. She wasn't eager. She wasn't desperate. She was simply following her people's law, even if it scared her. Ryland stepped back a little, hands raised gently. I didn't come here to take anyone. I was just trying to help. The chief's eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in deep understanding. Then you are worthy. We do not force. The bond must be chosen by both. He turned to the people and raised his staff. The guardian has seen. He will walk among us. When the heart speaks, the bond may begin. With a soft clap, the crowd bowed, and the ceremony faded into silence. Ciala quickly disappeared into the glowing tunnels, her silver hair trailing behind her like falling snow. Ryland was left standing in the middle of the chamber, confused, alone, and overwhelmed. That night, he was given a space inside the roots of the great Nolari tree, a chamber lit with bioluminescent threads and soft moss for a bed. He lay awake, listening to the soft songs drifting through the tunnels. What had he stepped into? The next morning, a younger Nolari named Eileen arrived, carrying food nutrient-rich leaves, glowing fruit, and a drink that tingled on Ryland's tongue. Eileen was curious, wide-eyed, and full of questions about humans. Is it true you live in metal cities that float in space? Do you all carry thunder in your hands? Ryland chuckled. Not all of us. But yeah, it's loud where I'm from. Eileen laughed, a sound like tiny wind chimes. He pointed toward the surface. Wood? You help us fix the sky lens? It helps us watch the stars and the hunters. Eager to be useful, Ryland followed Eileen to a high canopy platform. The sky lens was a damaged crystal array used for long-range vision. It had been cracked during the raid. Ryland used his tools to fuse the breaks, adapting some of his tech to stabilize the signal. As he worked, more Nolari gathered around, watching in wonder. For them, his human gear was like magic. For the next few days, Ryland helped where he could, fortifying walls, patching energy leaks, and learning bits of their language. He learned the Nolari weren't just fragile forest dwellers. They were artists, scholars, and explorers, once part of a peaceful alliance that fell apart after other species saw no value in creatures so small. But Ciala avoided him. He'd catch glimpses of her in the trees, watching from above, or slipping silently between flower-lit corridors. She was always alone. Raylan couldn't stop thinking about her. Not because of her beauty or the strange bond talk, but because of her silence. She had offered herself out of duty, not choice. That haunted him. One evening, as golden pollen drifted through the air, Raylan wandered into a vast chamber filled with carved stone. The walls glowed with ancient symbols and painted scenes. He stepped closer and froze. There, etched into the rock, was an image of a towering human figure kneeling beside a Nolari, female hands joined, surrounded by light. More images showed them defending the tribe together, their spirits merging, forming a new symbol that pulsed with energy. Ilve and appeared behind him. "That is the first bond," he said softly. "Long ago, a human crashed here, like you. He fought for us, loved one of us. Their bond gave birth to the Nolari way, but it has not happened again. Until maybe, now." Raylan stared at the mural. "She doesn't want this, does she?" Ilven hesitated. "She fears the weight of it. But she watches you, every step." Later that night, Raylan found himself near the tree roots, staring into the glowing water. His thoughts were a mess. He wasn't supposed to care. He had missions, orders, a life out there in the stars. But something about this place pulled at him. It felt like the first time in years he'd done something that truly mattered. Then he heard the flutter of wings. He turned slowly. Ciala stood there, holding a tiny carved stone in both hands. "For you," she said quietly. He took it. It was shaped like a star and burned warm in his palm. "Thank you," he said. She looked up, eyes shimmering. "I don't want to be your gift. I want to be chosen. Someday." Then she turned and vanished into the dark, leaving Raylan speechless, clutching the star. From the shadows above, someone watched. Not all in the forest were happy the Guardian had survived. Not all welcomed the bond. And not all threats had passed. The next morning, the village felt quieter. Not in sound, but in spirit. Raylan moved through the vine-wrapped corridors with a heavy chest, the carved star from Ciala still in his pocket. He hadn't seen her since that brief moment near the roots, and her words kept echoing in his mind. "I don't want to be your gift. I want to be chosen." It struck him hard. She wasn't like the others. She questioned the old ways. Just like him, he walked past Nolari artists painting with glowing ink, and healers treating wounded from the raid, yet his thoughts were stuck on her, on how this bond wasn't fair to either of them. Raylan hadn't chosen her, and she hadn't chosen him. He'd simply stepped into their world in a moment of crisis. Now everyone whispered as he passed, calling him Guardian, pairing his name with hers like it was already decided. He asked Island where she'd gone, but the young Nolari only shrugged, face drawn. "She's not in the chambers. Not in the high nests, maybe, the old cliffs." Raylan didn't wait. He packed a rucksack with food, grabbed his rifle just in case, and made his way through the upper trails, climbing roots thick as towers and leaping across mossy platforms. The cliffs were sacred, he'd heard. A place where Nolari went when they needed to think or grieve. By late afternoon, he reached the ledge. The wind howled there, carrying the sound of distant waterfalls and rustling wings. And there she was, Ciala, perched on a branch, legs dangling, her wings folded tight. She didn't turn when he approached. "I didn't come to change your world," he said softly, sitting a respectful distance away. "And I never asked for this." Her voice was barely above a whisper. But you're changing it anyway. She looked at him then, eyes tired but not angry. You brought fire to protect us. You fixed what we could not. The bond isn't just about love. It's about balance, legacy, and now they look at me like I belong to you. Rylan winced. You? Don't. No one belongs to anyone. He pulled the carved star from his pocket and held it out. You gave me this, not because you had to, because you wanted to. She nodded slowly. And you kept it. A faint smile touched her lips. They sat in silence for a while, watching the moons rise over the treetops. It should have been peaceful, but then the ground shook. At first it was faint, a tremor, then a deep vibration, like thunder coming from beneath the earth. Birds scattered, branches trembled, then distant screams. Rylan was on his feet instantly, pulling Ciala close. Stay behind me. A fireball rose from the jungle in the far. Distant smoke, ash, and the unmistakable hum of raider ships descending. Again, but this time, it was coordinated. Bigger. Rylan and Ciala rushed back toward the village, wings and boots moving together in rhythm. As they descended, they saw destruction. The outer defenses were gone. The pulse fence he helped fix was cracked in half. Raiders were inside the tunnels now, moving with precision, taking hostages, not just killing. Why are they back so soon? Ciala gasped, ducking behind a vine wall as energy blasts lit the cavern. Rylan narrowed his eyes. They know about the bond. They know if they take you, they take your people's future. He looked down at her. They came for you. They moved together through the chaos, Rylan picking shots from cover, Ciala using her natural camouflage to mark enemy positions. It was like they'd fought together for years. They slipped into the infirmary, clearing it of raiders, dragging the wounded out. One of the elders clutched Ciala's hand, bleeding from a cracked wing. You must live, or we all fade. Rylan's jaw clenched. No more running. We make a stand here. Together, they pushed deeper toward the village heart, reaching the yacht. Power chamber. That's when they saw the leader of the raiders, a tall reptilian merc with deep scars and glowing red optics. So, this is the Guardian, he snarled, spotting Rylan. And this is the prize. Ciala stood tall, wings stretched wide, even as her hands trembled. I am not a prize. I am Nalari. The merc laughed. Not for long. He fired. The bean hit her square in the chest. She flew back, slamming into the tree wall with a horrible crack. Rylan screamed her name, diving to her side, catching her tiny frame as it fell limp. Her wings were torn, her light dimming. No, stay with me. Rylan whispered, his voice cracking. She looked up, pain thick in her voice. The bond, not complete. Can't share strength. He looked at the energy pulsing through the floor, the ancient bond chamber. It was close, and maybe it could still work. The merc raised his rifle again. Too late. Rylan's eyes burned with fury. No, he growled, cradling her close. It's just begun. Then he ran for the bond chamber, carrying her in. His arms bleeding, glowing, and barely breathing as the raiders closed in behind him. Rylan sprinted down the twisting tunnels of the Nolari sanctuary, each step echoing with urgency. He could feel her heartbeat against his chest faint, fluttering like a dying star. Ciala's lavender wings trailed behind her, torn and darkened by the energy blast. Her breath came in shallow gasps, each one weaker than the last. He didn't know where he was going exactly, only that the ancient bond chamber was near. The elders had spoken of it. A place where chosen hearts could merge, where life could be shared. If it was real, it was their only chance. The jungle shook above as the raiders advanced, their ships pushing through the canopy, destroying everything in their path. Cries echoed from the upper chambers. Nolari were being taken, some captured, others killed. Rylan gritted his teeth. He wasn't just fighting to save Ciala anymore. He was fighting to protect everything she believed in. A glowing vine marked the entrance ahead. It shimmered with a blue light, humming like it was alive. Rylan ducked through the arch and found himself in a massive chamber deep beneath the roots of the great tree. The walls were made of living stone, etched with glowing lines that pulsed like a heartbeat. In the center was a shallow pool of luminous, liquid golden, warm and swirling as if waiting. Rylan knelt beside it and gently lowered Ciala into the water. Her tiny body floated, motionless. "Come on," he whispered. "Don't do this to me. Not after everything." Her eyes flickered, open for a moment. "It's too late." "No," Rylan said firmly. "You said the bond has to be chosen. I'm choosing it. I choose you. I don't know what that means. I don't know how it works. But I know I can't lose you." The chamber responded. The glowing lines on the walls lit up in sequence, faster and brighter. The pool began to swirl around them, rising slightly, covering them both in its light. Ciala's body started to glow again, but so did Rylan's. He felt warmth move through his chest, into his spine, and then into his mind. A voice echoed, not spoken aloud, but inside him. "Do you offer your strength, your will, your soul? Yes, do you accept the bond? Not by law, but by heart?" "Yes." The light surged upward like a wave, wrapping around them both. Rylan saw flashes, memories not his own. Ciala as a child, learning to fly, her first painting, her fear the day her sister died, her pain when Rylan first refused her, her hope when he took the star, and she saw him on Earth, alone, fighting, training, losing people he cared about. The day he volunteered for this assignment, just to get away from everything, his loneliness, his anger, his need for purpose. When the light faded, they lay together in the pool. Rylan was soaked, trembling, but alive. Ciala opened her eyes, smiled faintly. "I feel you. You're in me." He smiled back. "And you're in me." They didn't have time to celebrate. Asterisk, the chamber shook again. Heavy boots echoed down the stone hall. The raiders had found them. Rylan stood slowly, placing Ciala behind him. But something felt different. His strength had doubled. His focus sharpened. Even his vision pulsed with strange clarity, as if he could see energy itself. Ciala reached for his arm, and where their skin touched, a soft blue glow formed like a living shield. The first merc stepped through the entrance. Rylan raised his rifle, but he didn't fire yet. "Last chance. Leave this place, or I'll make you regret coming." The merc laughed, stepping forward. "You're just one man." "No," Rylan said, his voice calm, steady. "We're two souls now." Before the merc could react, Rylan moved, faster than before. With Ciala guiding his steps through the bond, he dodged incoming fire, using cover, striking hard. Her instincts blended with his tactics, her sight, his training. Together, they became something new. Asterisk, a hybrid warrior. A guardian in truth. Chamber filled with smoke and shouts as more raiders charged in. Rylan didn't fall back. He stood his ground, holding the line. Ciala used her glow to blind the attackers, sending pulses through the roots and knocked them off balance. The Nolari from nearby tunnels began to return, fighting back with spears and lightstones. Hope reignited. The chief arrived, battered but alive, and saw them, Rylan and Ciala, standing side by side in a circle of light. He dropped to one knee. "The bond is real. The Guardian has risen." The remaining raiders retreated. Their leader, wounded and furious, spat a curse and vanished into the jungle. Asterisk, the battle was over, But the bond was only beginning got, as the Nolari sang in victory. Ciala turned to Rylan. Her wings were healing, her glow steady now. You chose. He reached down, cupping her tiny face gently. I didn't just choose. I understood. And far above, the stars shimmered as if watching their union with quiet wonder. But even as peace settled, a shadow moved in the far distance, one that knew of the bond and feared its power. Asterisk. The jungle air was heavy with smoke, and yet there was peace for now. The raiders had been pushed back. The Nolari village, though damaged, still stood. But Rylan knew this was only a pause in the storm. The leader of the mercenaries had escaped, and the look in his eyes before he fled said everything. He would return. And next time, it wouldn't be with a handful of grunts. It would be an army. Rylan sat at the edge of the bond chamber pool, shirt torn and blood smeared across his face. His pulse rifle lay at his side, drained and smoking. Ciala rested against his chest, breathing steadily, her tiny hand pressed against his. He could feel her heartbeat in his own chest now, as if their bodies shared a rhythm. The bond had changed. Everything, not just physically, but in ways he still didn't understand. When he closed his eyes, he saw her memories, felt her emotions. Even now, he could sense her curiosity mixing with exhaustion, her gratitude wrapping around his own fear like a blanket. The connection wasn't invasive. It was comforting, complete. You're thinking too loud, Ciala murmured. Her voice soft, playful. I can hear your worry. Rylan smiled tiredly. You're hearing right. That mercenary isn't finished. He'll come back with more. Maybe even a whole fleet if he thinks you're valuable enough. She looked up at him, wings flicking gently. Not me. Us. They'll come for what we've become. The idea made his stomach turn. Not just because of the danger, but because she was right. Their bond wasn't a secret anymore. It had power. Power that others might try to use or destroy. The next few days were a blur of rebuilding. Rylan worked alongside the Nolari, helping reinforce the tunnel entries, using his tech to reprogram energy shields, and teaching the villagers how to hold a blaster. Ciala was always nearby, sometimes perched on his shoulder, sometimes coordinating the injured, her voice calm and commanding. The chief, now walking with a carved cane and bruised ribs, called them both to a quiet council chamber. You are not just bonded, he said. You are now the bridge. Raylan raised an eyebrow. Bridge? You are two worlds joined. Our ancestors speak of such a union not seen for generations. You were chosen not by law, but by choice. The bond makes you one of us, Rylan Creed, and that means you must lead with her. Ciala turned to Rylan. He's asking us to be more than just bonded. He wants us to become a voice for our people. Rylan looked at the chief. I'm not a leader. I'm a soldier. You were, the chief replied gently. Now you are something new. That night, Rylan stood at the high canopy ledge overlooking the glowing village. The stars above shimmered, and for the first time, they felt close, like he could reach out and touch them. Ciala joined him, sitting on his shoulder, wings brushing his cheek. We can't stay hidden forever, she said. The galaxy is vast. But if the wrong people find out about what we are, they'll try to control it, Rylan finished. But what if we showed them something different? She asked. Not fear, not war. What if we showed them hope? He looked at her, surprised. You really believe that's possible? I do. Because I believe in you. Her words struck something deep inside him. All his life, Rylan had fought other people's battles. For the first time, he felt like he'd found his reason to fight. He reached up and held her gently in his palm. She stood there with balance and grace, placing her hands over his thumb, her eyes glowing. Then we show them, he said. We show them what a human and a Nolari can be together. Just then, a warning flare burst into the sky. One of the Nolari scouts came sprinting through the trees, wings tattered and face pale. "Sky ships," he cried. "4 of them. Approaching? Fast." Ryland's heart dropped. "So soon?" "They're not raiders," the scout said, gasping for air. "They bear the mark of the Black Sun Syndicate." Ryland cursed under his breath. That wasn't a ragtag group. They were organized slavers and mercs with resources. Dangerous ones. Ciala gripped his finger tightly. "They'll burn everything." Ryland shook his head. "Not if we make them believe this place isn't worth the cost." He turned to her, his eyes fierce. "There's one last chance. The beacon on my scout ship. I never triggered it. It's hidden. If I reach it, I can send a burst to my old unit. Maybe someone will come. But you might not make it back," she said quietly. Raylan held her gaze. "If I don't try, none of us will." She took a shaky breath, then reached into the pouch at her waist and pulled out the carved star she'd once given him. "Then take this, so I can feel you with me." He slipped the star into his vest and nodded. Then he looked around at the glowing lights of the Nolari sanctuary, his new home, his new people, and the tiny girl who had become everything. He didn't look back as he ran into the night. Far above, 4 black ships pierced the sky, their engines howling like beasts. The final war had begun. Raylan ran through the jungle like a man on fire. Vines whipped across his face. Twisted roots threatened every step, but he didn't stop. He couldn't. The beacon was his last chance, the only way to signal for help across the stars. The Nolari couldn't survive what was coming. Not alone. Not even with Dot in his chest. He felt her Dot's IA, La Dot. Their bond didn't fade with distance. In fact, the farther he went, the louder she became, not in words, but in presence. He felt her anxiety pulsing, rising like heat. Her fear wasn't for herself. It was for him. "You must be careful," her voice whispered in his thoughts. "They're close. I can feel them through the roots. The Black Sun is hunting." "I?" "No," he answered silently, surprised at how natural the connection had become. "But I'm almost there. Stay hidden. Keep the others safe." The crash site came into view, his original drop pod, now half buried in moss and vines. A cluster of sensor drones hovered nearby, long inactive. Ryland skidded to a halt, dropped to his knees, and began tearing into the panel. He didn't notice the shadow behind him. A low hum. A sharp snap. Too late. Something struck him hard in the back of the head. Darkness. He awoke, tied to a tree, arms bound, his gear stripped, his vision swimming. The jungle air reeked of smoke and ash. Across from him stood the Black Sun leader, the same scarred mercenary who had nearly killed Ciala days before. His armor was heavier now, glinting with reinforced plating. Behind him, several armed raiders surrounded the area, scanning the tree line for threats. "Well," the merc sneered, kneeling beside him. "Didn't expect you to walk into my trap so willingly. But I'm glad you did. Saves me a trip." Ryland didn't speak. A merc leaned closer. "Where is she? The little one, the bonded freak." Still silence. "I know what you are now." The merc hissed. "A human and a Nolari sharing minds. That's dangerous. That's power. And power like that, it's valuable." He stood, lifting a communicator. "We'll bring her in. Cut her open. See what makes the bond work. Sell. The pieces to the highest bidder." Ryland's rage boiled inside him, but his body refused to move. His strength was drained. He was a lone Dot until he felt it dot her, not in words this time, but in emotion. Fierce, focused, close. "I'm coming," her voice said in his mind. "Hold on." He struggled against the ropes, heart pounding. The merc laughed. "Don't waste your energy, Guardian." A pulse of light flashed through the trees, then another. Soft at first, then blinding dot figures emerged from the jungle. Tiny, swift, winged dozens of Nolari warriors. And at the center, her Ciala. She glowed brighter than he'd ever seen. Her wings, though still healing, were fully extended, pulsing with life. She held no weapons. She didn't need to. Her voice cut through the jungle like thunder. "Let him go." The merc turned. "You're brave, little one. But you're too late." He raised his blaster, fired. The beam never reached her. It bent, curved, hit the ground. Ciala raised her hand, her fingers crackling with energy. The bond wasn't just emotional anymore, it was physical. Raylan felt it as her power poured through the earth. The jungle roots responded, rising from the ground like living serpents. One struck the merc, knocking him off his feet. Another snapped the rope around Raylan. He fell forward into the dirt, coughing, but alive. She was at his side in seconds, her hands on his face. "I've got you," she whispered into his thoughts. He stood slowly, strength returning like fire in his veins. Around them, the Nolari swarmed. The Black Sun mercenaries tried to retreat, but the jungle was no longer theirs. It belonged to the bonded. Raylan grabbed his rifle from one of the fallen. "Let's finish this." The final battle was chaos and light. Human tactics merged with Nolari speed. Raylan fought like never before, every movement guided by Ciala's voice in his mind. She warned him before every ambush. He shielded her through every charge. Together, they were unstoppable. When the last merc fell, the jungle was quiet again. Smoke curled through the treetops. The Nolari stood victorious, but not without loss. Many had fallen. The price had been high. The chief arrived hours later, staff dragging behind him. He looked upon the pair, bloody and glowing with bondlight. "You have defended not just us, but what we are becoming." Raylan turned to Ciala. "What are we becoming?" She smiled. "A new story." Weeks passed. The humans came, finally answering the beacon. They were cautious at first, shocked at what they saw. A human bonded with a miniature alien race? It defied everything they knew. But the Nolari stood proud, and Ciala spoke not just for her people, but for both of them. Raylan stayed. He didn't return to Earth, not fully. Instead, he built something new with her in the heart of the jungle. Beside the ancient bond chamber, they planted a star-shaped stone, a symbol of unity, of choice, of love. And every night, as the stars danced overhead, Raylan could still hear her voice in his mind. "You are never alone. You just hadn't found me yet." And he would smile, reaching out his hand as her wings carried her into his arms once more. *The End.